Folks, we're back with the shit bi-weekly Q&A. I almost said weekly Q&A. Look at Mike's flexing on me. He's already trying to posture me down for this week's episode. God damn it. Mike.
Listen to me, James. I'm in charge. This is my show. You're just the guest. Now shut up.
I'm actually not in Scott Hoons, the sound guy, or as we call him around these parts, Daddy. I'm not in his good graces at the moment because we've been working on the audio book for Mel's book, the habit building book, and Audible is just a pain in the butt. So I've been bugging Scott lately, like, I need the DBs adjusted on all these files.
Who recorded it?
Scott did.
Who voiced it?
Oh, I did. I read the book, and then there's a few parts where Mel walks people through some of her worksheets, and then her and I did like a Q&A at the end, like an interview.
I got you. That's funny.
It's mostly me.
You shouldn't say that. Like it shouldn't, because like like Audible, blah 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 book title, by Melissa Davis, and it should just stop there. It shouldn't be like voiced by James Hoffman. It should just be like Mel. It's like, hello, listen to me. I know I can sound like a woman, but I swear to God, your habits are bad.
You're not doing it. Yeah. So Scott is probably ruining me at the moment. Just like, oh, fucking James, pain in my ass.
Oh, hopefully he hears this.
Yeah.
Hates you more.
He's going to be muting me the whole episode.
For the questions?
To the questions away. All right.
So first up is a gentle person.
Frame of me.
Oh God. NECU. Why don't you just type that out in there, James?
All right.
Nonsense.
Oh, there we go. Whoa.
Yeah.
Rekako says over.
Oh, are you from the fucking Huttese warlord? Is this someone from Tatooine?
I was thinking the same thing.
Let me guess, it's a fat loss question, JK. Hey, look, fat's in there already.
Wonka Nola slugs if it fits your macros, Wonka.
Jabba's like, he reads like some like precision nutrition thing where it's like, fats, are they bad for your health? He's like,
he's pounding frogs in the like from the thing.
Maybe like James Hoffman is standing in front of Jabba's like fucking pit, and the translator robot's like, Sir Jabba would like to ask you why you said that obesity and health cutoffs were what they were. And you're like, Sir Jabba, please. I'm here to report the evidence.
It hits the button, tosses me into the Rancor pit. Like, no.
I love it. All right. So Naku asks, Dear Mike and James, please debunk the next two quote-unquote myths. Fat is bad after workout. Gummy bears are great post-workout.
I like that those are already myth level. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just like, oh, somebody said this. These are already myths in the industry.
All right. For instance, I am eating 5 eggs, 30 grams protein, and 7 rice cakes, 40 grams carbs after workout. Is it true that my post-workout is really bad? Because as a beginner, not pro bodybuilder, I have no intentions to remove beautiful yolks, which is fat and slows absorption after workout, which means I sabotage my progress. Haribo gummy bears after workout, insulin spike, quick carbs, scientifically proven. Is a second myth, and it's becoming quite a thing. Now, have you heard about it? Well, we may have been a part of what generated that myth, quote unquote. So let's just cut to the chase. Because you're a beginner, you can eat whatever the fuck you want after workout. Doesn't matter as long as there's protein in it, you're fine. And if it has carbs in it, that's a big bonus. And if it has like not a ton of fats, then yeah, there's like a tiny marginal improvement, but I wouldn't worry about any of that. So I think you're good to go. As you get more and more serious about training, you may want slightly higher marginal results, which means you take your post-workout fats down to a really low amount. If you're curious, I'm not going to Google it for you, but there's at least one research paper that mechanistically proves that high intake of fats post-workout actually shuts down muscle growth to some pretty significant extent. Mind you, this is, I believe, just only fats and at a very high dose. But there are other mechanisms and thoughts about that. So I would say if you're really, really serious, keep your fats legit, like not psychotically high. I'd say your fat calories should be lower than your carb and protein calories. So like if you split it up into 3 macros and how many calories come out of each, fat calories should be lower than your proteins and carbs. And that's how James and I give you the nod of like, you're trying. If your fat calories are higher than the other ones, that sweet, you're eating food. And, and look, over the long term, if your daily macros are good, it's not a big deal. As far as gummy bears, and listen, they're a quick digesting carb source. And in the context of having them with a protein shake, specifically whey, they're actually an excellent post-workout source. There's nothing wrong with them. I wouldn't call them a myth. It's just a thing. James?
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it on the head. So Neku, or however we say your name here, really, like, you don't have to worry about this too much unless you're, as Mike said, like, your training starts to become more intense because you're getting more and more jacked and your demands go up. Really, like, I think that where this is the most important is when you are training multiple times per day and your recovery kind of in between sessions can be limited by your nutrition, right? So if you are just training, let's just say like 5 times a week, like a normal human being would, you don't have to worry about this a ton, right? There is a marginal benefit to having like high glycemic carbs and fast digesting proteins after your workout. However, that benefit is pretty small. So it's not really a huge thing to fuss over. If you are somebody who is like a collegiate soccer player who maybe does a practice session, a training session, and maybe a conditioning or skill session, maybe 3 training sessions per day, Mike and I would be more inclined to say, yeah, you need to really think about minimizing your fats after your workouts and really getting those glycemic carbs. But for somebody like you don't really have to worry about it too much. If you want to be doing like your best efforts, as Mike already said, think about reducing your fats post-workout and entertaining the idea of higher glycemic carbs. But you could also just keep eating like the rice cakes, and that would be completely fine. Like if you wanted to change what you were doing, you could just switch from eggs to egg whites, and that would be like a perfectly fine adjustment. You wouldn't have to really do anything from there. I know you still want to eat the yolks, and personally, I think that's fine. Even if you're training like 6 times per week, if you're doing kind of beginner level training, keep doing what you're doing.
Boom. Next up is, I believe it's Mr. Henrik Anderson with, again, a trillion upvotes.
Mr. Anderson. Oh, I spelled it wrong, but I still found it. How about that?
All right. Ugh.
Did we just both burp at the same time?
Yeah, I coughed.
Oh.
All right. I'm about to enter a very stressful semester of school, work, and life in general. To save time, I've started to incorporate more intensity techniques for smaller muscle groups such as delta, calves, biceps, forearms, etc. However, my questions are, do intensity techniques result in worse hypertrophy compared to straight sets if volume and intensity is equal? Some combination of almost certainly not / we don't know. James, agreed so far?
Totally.
For the question above, does your answer change based on muscle in question, delts versus quads, for example? Yes, actually it does. Intensity techniques for a very large, very fast twitch muscles, or have a lot of faster twitch fibers, hamstrings, spinal erectors, quads, glutes. Sometimes you need to really take some long rest times with those muscles to really tap into everything. And intensity techniques can sometimes violate the 4-factor rest model that we've talked about. If you don't know what that is, just feel free to YouTube it, like rest breaks Israel or RP for rest, like number 4. And you'll get something, but basically it's
scientific principles of hypertrophy training.
Right, or buy the book. Well, a lot of this is like, if you bought the book, it's kind of, it comes with it. So yeah, basically like your cardio could be limiting your muscle contraction versus your muscle contraction itself. And that's not good, because then that could result in such not so great things. So like if James and I are flying, let's say we get to England for a seminar and we have to train in the morning and then go do seminar stuff and then come back at night. We only have 2 hours to train. James and I could easily do like a fast delt bicep workout with tons of intensity techniques. But if James or I come up to each other and go like, hey man, I'm trying to smash quads here, we got like 45 minutes. We're going to be like, what's your plan?
Yeah.
Like some of that stuff. And also safety things, like warming up just takes a while because you don't want to fuck up something.
Yeah. And like Mike said, sometimes the systemic fatigue can be overwhelming for the bigger muscle groups. And frankly, and this isn't meant to sound like a cop out to anybody, but like pain. Like if you're doing fucking quads, like sometimes those techniques are just awful for that muscle group. And you're just like, fuck this. Yeah. This sucks too much. And rightfully so. Could you maybe get away with doing like drop sets or maybe mile reps on like a knee extension or something like that? Yeah, sure. But then again, that's maybe not like the best bang for your buck in terms of a quad workout for that day. So I think, that's a tough one on some of those bigger muscle groups.
Next is, do intensity techniques cause more systemic fatigue than straight sets? Generally, no. If the stimulus is roughly the same, then the fatigue is probably roughly the same. So I wouldn't bet on that. Sometimes actually less. Sometimes they cause a bit less of both. So the stimulus isn't as great, but the fatigue isn't as great. But so the big thing about intensity techniques is they save you a lot of time. But generally, they don't really muck up the stimulus to fatigue dynamics. Next one is, which muscles would you recommend I use intensity techniques on, and which would you not recommend? Well, like we said, I think the chest, back, glutes, quads, hams, I'd probably leave to normal training as much as possible. The other stuff can be intensity, basically smaller muscles. James, am I missing anything there?
No, I think that's good. And there's also, I think there's, depending on which muscle groups you're choosing, there's also like a safety consideration, because like I'm imagining like doing some kind of bench pressing variation or something like that. And it's like, good luck. You don't want to get stuck or drop the weight on yourself. But yeah, usually I find that the smaller muscle groups tend to just be a better pick for those, especially if you're just doing it because you're in a time crunch. You can do it on the bigger muscle groups, but again, like cardiovascular limitations, pain limitations, and then safety limitations starts to factor in.
Yeah. And then lastly, do you recommend any other time-saving techniques / strategies that will worsen hypertrophy results? Well, compound alternating supersets generally aren't great for hypertrophy results. I will say that because you're in a stressful semester, probably James is going to say this anyway, but I'll beat him to the punch this time. You might just want to take a maintenance phase, like
bingo.
Yeah, but and then you can do real short workouts and not worry about it at all. That actually is probably our best recommendation for you, because you got to wonder, like, all the other fatigue stimulus coming in. If you try to get equivalent hypertrophy, there's a lot of stress coming in, and stress actually reduces hypertrophic outcomes. Whether or not your training is high or lower, it'll still do that. So you might kind of like be, it's kind of like you can go across to see the island in any weather, but you choosing to paddle faster during the storm. Like, maybe just wait till the storm's gone and you can go.
I think that's a great strategy.
Yeah. And any other time-saving techniques? I would say myo reps. Don't forget about myo reps. They're great for time-saving techniques, and they work for a lot of stuff, even on things like hack squats and leg presses. But that being said, man, I think this is a real good time for maintenance. James?
Yeah, whenever we get into like the time-saving techniques, I think that always opens up the can of worms of like, why do you need time-saving techniques? Do you have other more important things going on? And that generally goes to that next level of like, maybe you should think about taking a maintenance phase. Now, there are times where like, yeah, life sucks. You're going to have jobs, school, family stuff going on. And sometimes you just need to bang out some workouts, and they're not going to be the best workouts in the world, and you just got to get them done. That's when like the supersets, like Mike said, can be really useful. Other times, like if you don't really need to be doing hard training, and you have to maybe you have to think about it a little bit, like, do I really need to be doing a cut or a mass phase right now? And a lot of times you think like, no, I don't. I can actually just do a maintenance phase for a while and cruise. And I've had tons of clients of my own who were in dental school, who were in law school, who had families, who had other things going on, and we're doing a cut, and they finally are just like, yo, I can't do this. And I'm like, I don't know how you did it this long. Like, let's just do maintenance. And they're like, and then they do maintenance for a month, and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is so great. Why didn't we do this before? I'm like, yeah, I know. So it's totally fine. It's not a cop-out.
Yeah, absolutely. Give that some thought, Hendrik. All right, next person. Actually, James, can you scroll down one? I want to see what that rest of that thing says.
Console cadets.
Can you open it up? There's one more question. Dr. Mike is my hero, rolling on the floor laughing. No cap, which Crystal and I just recently found out means I'm not lying. It's the truth.
I didn't know that.
Slaying for you, James. There you go. It's something hood motherfuckers say a lot, because I think they assume each other is lying. I don't know. They say it like way too much. Want to meet him in real life. He and Dr. James are smart as hell, but they are funny as shit.
Yes.
All right. I've been bodybuilding enthusiast all my life. One of my goals is to compete in a bodybuilding show just to get the experience. I have been powerlifting and hypertrophy trained since I was a teenager. I'm now 27, would still consider myself an amateur. What advice would give to someone like me who would like to compete in a show but has no experience? I'll have that advice in just a sec. I understand a little bit, but I'm sure there's more to know outside of the obvious ones. Thank you, guys. If you exactly read this message, P.S. Dr. Mike, when you have your beard, you look like Zangief from Street Fighter. Thank you. I made this joke before. I found out you were actually from Russia, which is cooler and even funnier. Another interesting thing is our beards are actually quite rare in Russia. People like a clean-shaven face in Russia, which is, there are like archetypes or stereotypes about Russians from Americans that are, some of them are spot on, like most of them are fucking alcoholics. And some of them are just way off base. Most Russians actually don't live in the wilderness. So the whole thing, like, oh, a bear is a regular thing in Russia. Like almost no Russians have ever seen a bear, and most of them do. They'd freak the fuck out and run away. It's like it's like Canadians, like, oh, you guys live with bears? They'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? We live in Toronto. So anyway, we go on. I'll tell you what. My exact piece of advice to you is hire a coach. Hire a coach. Somebody like Steve Hall from Revive Stronger and his team, Jess, and the other folks that work there. They're really, really good. They work with drug-free people. They're really going to meet you at your level. They're going to do an awesome job. I would say Sam Okinola, Jared Feather's booked up all to shit. Sam Okinola, pretty booked up, unfortunately, probably for some time. And I think with someone for the first show, I think if you get into a couple of shows in, reaching out to Sam and Jared at RP is a really good idea. I think the Revive Stronger folks are just really what you're looking for. But highly recommend that. James?
Yeah, I was going to go the same route. I'll just add one layer on top of that. You definitely want like a prep coach in terms of the training and nutrition stuff, but also a posing coach if you've never done it before. It's a little weird. So get a posing coach too.
All right. Next up is Vasil Zhilev, Vasil. Only one Vasil as far as I know. There we go.
Okay.
I'm in my fourth year of training and have a decent foundation physique-wise. At least I would assume so, but my upper body is lagging behind aesthetically due to my narrow shoulder girdle and average bicep, tricep, and shoulder insertions. I wouldn't say average is lagging behind, but okay. I'm facing a dilemma. Should I, after my cut, run the RP shoulder and arm specialization or not? Is there too much of an opportunity cost for back and chest, which I also want to grow a lot more? Yes, I ultimately want bigger everything, and I consistently have noticed I cap out systemically at 115 to 120 sets. So good to know. Which means my shoulders and arms 2 to 4 average MRV as per RP guidelines. So Vasil, first thing is this is all really a value judgment up to you. Then it depends on how soon you want to have the balanced physique. If your balanced physique goal is for between 7 and 10 years from when you started training, which is when most physiques quote unquote mature if you're doing things right, then you don't have to worry about shit right now. And for the next several years, you can just train all around. If you want to be in fuckboy shape within a year, I would start training shoulders and arms more. You can consider the shoulder and arm specialization. You should also look at some of our other specialization stuff we just came out with. And potentially we'll be coming out with something within the next few months that is really, really going to be up your alley for specialization. But it's super top secret. James and I just started talking about it. And it's super top secret, so I can't say anything else. So maybe hold off on that purchase. I can't believe it. Taking money out of our own fucking pocket. Yeah, I would say it's really just up to you, but give that for what you will. But James, before you answer your version, the video we have right next to it is a predator meets psycho in MMA.
That looks a lot like Tank Abbott and maybe Don Fry. Oh, it is Don Fry. I called it. I just saw his back. Yeah. That's how good I am in MMA. I can just look at a nice muscly back and know who it is.
Ooh.
God.
Who won that one?
I don't remember. I'm going to guess Don Fry.
Don Fry is a scary motherfucker. I would never fight that man.
He still is a scary motherfucker.
Yeah.
Let's see. So real quick, just side tangent, and I'll answer your question, Vasil. I don't know about you guys, but I am very excited about the pay-per-view this weekend. We're going to see the rematch from like 17 years ago of Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler. What a shit show.
Whoa.
What a shit show nostalgia fight that is. So
Who else is on that card?
Valentina Shevchenko is defending against Lauren Murphy, and Volkanovski's fighting Ortega for the belt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Russians. Shevchenko is probably not losing for some time, huh?
No, I don't see her losing to anyone, frankly. And I wish she would have distanced herself from Amanda Nunes, because I think Valentina is probably one of the best MMA athletes ever. But I think she doesn't quite get that rub because she lost to Amanda twice. And I mean, I think if Valentina would have just been like the 125-pound best fighter ever, she would get so much more credit. But she fought Amanda at 135 and lost to her twice. And so she always gets kind of the snub from Amanda. And the thing with her too, I think I looked at the odds. She's like a plus like 1,300 favorite right now, which for those of you who don't bet, that means you need to put down $1,300 to win $100 to make money on Valentina for this upcoming fight. So
that's a huge advantage.
Yeah. And I think Lauren Murphy's at like an 8-1 dog right now. So it's actually not a terrible idea to just throw like $20 on Lauren Murphy, because you'll get a huge payout. Because in order to make any money off Valentina, you need to have a big bankroll. So yeah, I'm excited for that one. Hopefully you guys will watch as well. Okay, sorry, Vasile. One thing that I have done with my clients, especially my male clients who are kind of in a, not exactly the same, but kind of similar, where they're like, I really want to, get the kind of the fuckboy look, as Mike says. But I'm not sure if I want to just not go all in on some other things. A lot of times what I'll just do is an upper focus, right? Where maybe put a little bit of extra juice into the target ones like arms and shoulders, but still train chest and back really hard. And then basically just put, abs, quads, hams, glutes, calves, any of the lower body stuff at like MV levels. And that usually works really well. And you could probably milk out some of the other gains while still making some pretty significant progress in your target area. So one thing to consider is just doing like an upper specialization, maybe not as narrow as just like an arm and shoulder specialization, especially if you're only about four years in, you could probably kind of still get away with that.
Boom. Mike S is up next.
Got it.
Oh, fuck.
Oh,
I just looked at the
personal.
I just looked at the upvote number, not the actual thing.
Well, here we are.
Oh, wow. All right. So Mike S asks or says, would love to hear the story and mindset behind the $ tattoo. Which one is it? This one? Oh, there it is. Look at them delts. It is a symbol from the book, from a book by the author and philosopher Ayn Rand. And it is, what's it called? Basically just stands for what comes pretty close to being a religion of mine, sort of, not so close. It's objectivism. Basically, it's a philosophy that's like the real world exists, doesn't matter how you feel about it. And working hard and diligently at solving problems makes all the wonderful things you see around you. And hoping and wishing and dreaming doesn't do shit. And productive people are the cornerstone of our society. So I would say somebody like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk are just better, period. And the more people that could be like them, the better, because they produce in a very actually objectively calculable higher value for society than everyone else. It also views capitalism as a very good thing, generally. The capitalism is a thing that has the double thank you moment. If you buy a soda at 7-Eleven, the cashier thanks you honestly for the money because they need it more than the soda, and you honestly thank them for the soda because you, by definition, needed it more than the money. And capitalism is then win-win and is amazing, and it produces probably everything you like in this life, except for the love of a child, which sex produces. I'll have you know, that's how children are born.
Which can also be purchased through capitalism.
Sure, you can adopt children and pay for not condoms and.
No, I meant sex.
Sex can be purchased through capitalism. Sex that makes a child difficult to purchase, but certainly people do it all the time. So yeah, Ayn Rand has. So my other tattoo is a gear that is from another Ayn Rand book, and give it a shot. And that's it. Oh, and just to preempt some responses in case you get finicky in the comments. How do I say this politely? Almost every objection to objectivism is a red herring, because the people who critique it are usually just deep down leftists at heart, and we feel a lot and mistake it for thinking. So if you're going to put in comments that say that Ayn Rand's a bad person on a personal level, it's actually ad hominem attack, it's already invalid. If you're going to say that objectivism has problems, I probably agree with you to some extent. And if you're going to say it's a completely defunct system, then you're probably wrong on multiple levels. And I probably won't be commenting, because just get Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell or any other basic econ book, read it, and then you'll probably have a slightly different view. Yeah, that's that. Let's beat that one to death.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up.
Get these Dr. Mike personal questions out of my face.
Yeah, honestly, I'm just going to read these from now on. I couldn't give a shit about myself personally, but Andrew Atchison, got him. Definitely has a question that's worthwhile. All right. Hi, doctors. I have a question about cardio, especially on a cut. Is it better to split the cardio across the week? For example, instead of one 90-minute cardio session, 3 30-minute sessions, or 6 15-minute sessions. I wonder on both health benefits between them. And also the calorie burning benefits are cutting too. Many thanks as always. For me, English mate in it, bruv.
Yes, that was good.
Yes, I don't talk like that. Haha. Andrew, of course you talk like that. You're from England. You don't have to be ashamed of it. We know you're a fucking from South London. You're one of those guys that wears like a fur coat, even though it's 30 degrees Celsius outside because you're a VIP as fuck. What do they call chavs? That's what you are, Andrew.
Know what it is? Chavs.
Boy, fuck off. There's like, basically like the same kind of person as Conor McGregor, but in English style.
He got busted for throwing a very shitty first pitch at a Cubs game recently.
The man's probably never thrown a ball. Throwing sports are not exactly Ireland's bag.
Yeah.
I thought he was just going to fight one of the players or something like that, or piss on the field.
He actually almost got into a tiff with Machine Gun Kelly at one of the fancy award shows.
Why would you ever do that? Machine Gun Kelly would be killed by one punch. This is an insane proposition, especially from maybe the most accurate punch thrower of all time. Jesus Christ. Maybe Machine Gun Kelly was talking that shit. Who knows? Maybe.
Who knows?
Maybe Connor's just an insane guy.
I think he's just like what do they call him in Ireland? Knacker.
Knacker. Yeah. Just a person of low social status. All right. So to answer this question, I think first of all, the best way to cut in a cardio context is cutting that has the highest stimulus to fatigue ratio. The stimulus is calories burned. The fatigue is the fatigue accrued while doing cardio. So being that that's the case, generally speaking, the optimum cardio, if we're really going to talk about it, is spreading it infinitely or near infinitely to where you wear a step tracker. And then all your cardio just gets done for your random tasks throughout the day. That's probably the lowest fatigue you can get with cardio, same calorie burning. I think everything else generally comes down to how it fits into your lifestyle, because it's such a small concern in the other case that I would say, look, if you have one 90-minute cardio session, Monday nights are free and you're really pissed after working, and that's when you grind, you put in your music, you put in a movie, you fucking get it done. That's awesome. 3 30-minute sessions or 6 15-minute sessions are just as effective, roughly. Maybe they have a little less fatigue on average on the physiological side, because you could potentially carry more fatigue on the scheduling side, where you look up and you're like, oh shit, I still have to do 50 minutes of cardio a day. Fuck, why do I do cardio every day? This is so stupid. So if it's not super fatiguing, spreading it out more is best, all the way to the limit extreme of having a step tracker. Then you spread it out sort of throughout the entire day. And then generally speaking, just purely on paper physiology, 1 or 2 ultra long cardio sessions, probably not the best because it generates more fatigue than we would like. But if it's best for your schedule, it really just comes down to that, which is honestly why James and I, outside of our very highly elite clients that need to worry about maximizing leg muscle, when people ask about cardio, we generally say whichever way you can get it done is 97% of the way there to optimality. James?
Yeah, that was a very good answer. So kind of on Dr. Mike's point here, I've been just doing an experiment with myself. So I'm not trying to say this is the right or wrong way to do it, but it's just food for thought. So I've been using a step counter on my watch lately, which is something that historically I haven't done. So, kind of somewhat new for me. And I've definitely been noticing my step count can be pretty low if I don't make an effort to go and do stuff, which is kind of alarming because I always just assumed I was living a very physically active lifestyle, but it turns out I'm actually a bit of a couch potato when I'm not training. So that's kind of the funny part. So here's the strategy that I've been using. I have the luxury of being able to work out at home. So I'll already preface this by saying I have a home gym. So this is practical for me, probably not for everyone else. So what I have been doing is I've been pairing step counts, and I've actually been using some of the things from Dr. Davis's Habit book, shameless plug. And what I've been doing is I have a TV set up by the treadmill, and I will do 15 minutes of cardio, just, normal list style cardio. And I will allow myself to watch whatever shows or movies that I'm very compelled to watch. So I watched all of the Neon Genesis Evangelion Rebuild movies, which I'm a big fan of that series. And I would only allow myself to watch. Lame. I would only allow myself to watch them in 15-minute chunks and only when I was doing cardio. So what I would do is I would go in the morning. I would do the first thing I would do is I'd wake up, take the dogs out, and then I'd go do my 15 minutes of cardio. And I would just do that as my warm up. And then I would do my first session in the morning, which is the hardest stuff for that session, take a break, have some meals throughout the day. I would come back at a later time, pair that with, again, watching the show that I really want to watch. I'd watch it for another 15 minutes, and then I would do my PM session. And that automatically gets my step count up to like 7,000 by like noon, which for me is great at that point. And if I don't do that, I might not even get to 10 that day. So that's just something I've been doing, as kind of Mike said, to spread it out almost at like an infinity level of just saying, okay, I can do a little bit of cardio every time I lift. And if I split up my lifting sessions and force myself to do a few more steps, I can really get that step count up. And if I pair that with some kind of habit forming, behavior modification, like, okay, I really want to watch the show. Normally I would just sit at home and binge watch the show. Now I'm going to prevent myself from doing that by only doing it when I'm doing my cardio session. So I think food for thought. Those are different strategies that you can adopt to kind of get the step count up a little bit.
Yeah, those are great. Those are fucking great. I have all sorts of stuff like that. My step tracker watch, which is MyFit, by the way, people ask me all the time, and it doesn't fucking matter. Is fucking phenomenal because I can be just 100% objective on my physical activity throughout the day, and I just don't have to be like, oh, am I being too lazy? Like, fact, I am not, or I am, and I have to go fix it. All right, let's actually. I'll knock off another one of the questions. This one I actually got. I never saw it. Thanks, YouTube algorithm. Right, the one right below. Where? Oh
my goodness. What the fuck?
What benefit do you think deep tissue massage has for recovery or injury prevention? It subjectively feels really good. It's really, really good when they do it on your cock. At least from the adult films I've seen. It's such an easy porn category is to like start with massage and then like all of a sudden she's on your dick and you're like, oh wait, but okay. I think it's just hilarious. It's like too easy.
I like that category. I'm not gonna lie.
I will say, okay, it's just way too much real talk. Whatever, fuck it. It's like if I'm J and the D and I'm sober, I usually just whatever, I roll with a fantasy. And if I'm high on edible marijuana, which again is legal in the states in which I do it, sometimes it's amazing, right? It's just way better than regular jacking off. Out of this world. Other times, your boy gets into a mindset. And this doesn't mean I have that mindset generally. Cool to hang out, movies seem awesome, everything's a fantasy. Then I start watching porn, and the first thing I notice, I'm like, oh yeah, she's gonna massage him and then get at his cock. I'm like waiting for her to do it. And I'm like, this is an unbelievably terrible technical massage she's delivering. Like if I was that guy, I'd be like, lady, what the fuck am I paying you for? She'd be like, oh, I'm gonna give you a hand job. I'd be like, right. But like that should just be hand job price, because what you're doing to my back is it's an embarrassment. Like nobody taught you how to put your weight in. Like tell me which muscle you're massaging right now. You have no idea. It's just awful, and I can't buy in. I'm like, this isn't a massage therapist. This is an adult film actress. And then I'm out.
Dude, I have the same problem when the roles are reversed, when it's the guy massaging the girl, right? And instead of actually like doing the massage, they just go right to finger banging. I'm like, that's not a massage. That wasn't really like a sexy scene. That was just finger banging. You're not even trying. Yeah. I'm like, no, this one's done.
Unreal. All right. So James, he says it subjectively feels really good, but I wonder if you guys have any insight on this. This is all you, James. Please take it away.
Yeah, so deep tissue massage is used for a variety of reasons, most of which I think are questionable at best. So where do I think that there is maybe a potential benefit here? I think that there are some forms of massage and deep tissue massage which can allow you to exert a greater range of motion for a short period of time, which might allow you to do something that has a more permanent effect on the muscle or joint in which you're working. So what that means is if you get like a massage, deep tissue in particular, and that kind of frees up kind of a locked up body part, for lack of better phrasing. Let's just say, like, for whatever reason, like one of your scaps is like really tight, or your hamstrings are really tight or something like that. And you just have a hard time like with stretching and it's just not doing it for you. Sometimes you can get a temporary relief with the deep tissue massage that might last a little bit longer than something like foam rolling, where it will allow you to now move into a greater range of motion. And that's great. And that will give you the temporary relief that you're looking for. It also just downregulates pain to some degree, which is just another kind of it's like taking Tylenol, right? Where the problem's still there, you just don't notice it as much. But in this case, if you can move around a little bit more, where you can benefit from that is now you can actually do either rehabilitative or just standard resistance training exercises, which does cause a permanent change in the flexibility, mobility characteristics of the joint and muscle. That's where you get a lot of bang for your buck. The way that most people do deep tissue massage is they're like, oh, I'm really stiff, or they just think it does a lot of things that it doesn't. They go and get a massage. They feel a little bit better, right? It does have somewhat of like an analgesic effect in some ways. Really, it's just down regulating your pain in that area. and no actual changes are really occurring unless it's followed up by some type of either therapy or training. So what you have to do in this situation is kind of pair both of those. Most people go get a deep tissue massage and they're like, that was great. And then they go lounge around and relax the rest of the day. Really, ideally, this would be a good time if somebody's working on a specific area for you. You're going to get a temporary benefit of just being able to move that area a little bit more freely. And that's when you actually want to think about doing whatever. The reason I say rehabilitative is because at this point, if you're getting a deep tissue massage, you're probably having a problem. It's not just something you're doing prophylactically. Yeah. And if you're doing it prophylactically, it's mostly a waste of time. It's something you can do if you are having a problem. And then I would pair that with like whatever your physical therapist or someone else, whatever activities they have told you to do for whatever area that you're having trouble moving around. But in terms of like normal exercise conditions, normal exercise, non-injury situations, I would say, mostly a waste of time unless you enjoy it. If you enjoy it, by all means, just enjoy it and just know that that's what you're doing, and that's fine.
Yeah. Man, there's a whole, I shudder to say, industry around the promulgation of deep tissue massage specifically for athletes.
Yeah.
What fraction of that do you think is like, if it disappeared tomorrow and athletes put their time and money somewhere else, would be a huge net benefit for athletes?
I don't know, because I feel like it's one of those, I feel like athletes they would just gravitate towards the next thing. They would just move on to some other weird thing. You know what I mean? It's just those type of people who are, and I know a lot of people who are high level athletes, and I won't name names, and they ask me questions about this stuff all the time. What do you think about massage? What do you think about Graston? I'm like, are you doing here's what I've learned, Mike, is that I always ask them first, are you currently doing it? Because normally what I would say is like, no, that's dumb. And then they're like, well,
my massage therapist says.
Right, exactly. Then you get into that exact situation. So now I say, like, are you currently doing it? More often than not, they'll say yes. And I'm like, do you think you get anything out of it? And they're like, I'm not sure. And then I'll say something to the tune of like, I don't think you're probably getting anything out of it unless you feel really strongly that you are. And if you do feel that way, keep doing it. If not, you could probably let it go.
Yeah, good call. All right. Next up is Rob Zim 1000.
What?
ROBZIM.
What? Okay. Let's see it. Rob Zim.
Robism.
Oh, Robism.
My
Oh,
bad.
There we go. Now we're in business.
All right. Oh, there's a question. Hi, docs. I have a question regarding quad development. I've been looking for movements or methods to target my vastus lateralis specifically, but I find myself flooded with information or possibly misinformation. I don't know where to begin. I'm assuming that progressive overload with suitable compound movement to hit all of my quad muscles at once is the best answer, and I'm putting that into practice already. I would like to target my lateral quad for a secondary movement in hope of achieving a wider look for my legs. Is this possible? I've read and been told about close leg squats or presses, pointing toes inward on extensions, hack squats, sissy squats, or putting my heels on a plate. I've done some trial and error, but it all feels the same and slightly awkward. Do either of you have any go-to moves or definite do's and don'ts? Thank you. Been following for about a year. Love the content and love the Frigo references to classic anime world.
My man, you already got one on this episode. Okay, I'm going to just make one point, and then Dr. Mike's going to hit this.
No, why don't you start this one off, James?
Well, I was only going to say that, like, you can kind of tell that you have some goals and you've been kind of trying to play around with some different exercises and techniques. And he says, it feels slightly awkward. That's normal. Whenever you pick up a new movement or you're modifying a movement that you've been working on, if you've been doing normal leg presses, then you try to do close stance leg presses. If you've never done a hack squat before, it's always going to feel awkward and shitty, probably for like a month until you get into like a really good groove. And I think Dr. Mike even has a couple videos on this, or at least has talked about it ad nauseum. You got to give those movements some time to kind of give yourself time to learn them, find your groove, modify and individualize the technique so that you're feeling it in the areas that you want to feel. So just because you get under a hack squat machine and you're like, this felt like a bad session today, don't give up. Keep working on it. Keep trying. And you might find that, that actually does hit the area that you want really bad. That was the only point I wanted to make on that real quick.
Yeah. I mean, there's very little research evidence, some theoretical consideration to say that if you keep your feet relatively close together, specifically if you keep your toes from pointing out a ton, maybe it'll recruit more lateralis lateralis fractionally than the other quad muscles. Now, that's saying a lot. It's going to make almost no difference, but if you want some kind of difference, then closer stance, feet forward, pointed a little bit more straight than you're used to. Definitely don't point your feet in. That's a fucking bad idea for your joints. And I would say that's probably your best bet. If feet close to each other, feet pointed in leg extensions. I don't know, man. That would grind my fucking knees to a pulp. But if it works for you, sure, try it. I just wouldn't go extreme with the feet in. Just keep your feet a little bit more straight. So if you normally squat like this, do this, and then squat with a narrower stance. Even squats, I think, should be left to how you're biomechanically ready to do them. So maybe hack squats do this, leg press do that. And I think that's probably your best bet. But really, a lot of this comes down to
yeah, there's really only a few movements for quad specifically where I think that you can really distinctly tell a regional difference. Like knee extension is a really easy one, right? You feel that in the medial part of the quad for sure. You don't really feel it all over. Whereas like kind of all the other ones, like most of the squatting variations, the leg pressing variations, you're feeling it largely all over the whole main body of the quad. It's very difficult to say like this region versus that region. And I'll tell you what, my friend, Robism, general strategies to bring up your quads, like just putting size on your quads, are probably going to take you a long way. I think unless you are, someone who is at the advanced level of bodybuilding, kind of like the, if you've ever watched Pumping Iron, actually Arnold makes a couple of really interesting points about this. But like, unless you're at that level, you really don't have to worry and pick and choose so much like very muscle specific, regionally specific exercises for your muscles. I think that the big SFR ones are the ones you want to find, learn, and stick with. And maybe they overlap, right? Maybe you find that, again, maybe hack squats, it took a little while for you, but they were one of your best SFR movements, and they just coincidentally caused the lateral part of your quad to blow up as a result, right? So don't think too much about like picking and choosing the very regionally specific areas. Think about like what's giving me the best SFR for my quads as a whole, and that's going to take you so much further than those.
So much further. Adam Conrad.
That is a very white man sounding name.
Sounds like some motherfucker who's maybe an astronaut or some shit.
All right.
Okay. Hey, docs, if a protocol says 3x5 at RPE 7/3 RIR, do you A, do RPE 7 for every set, dropping the weight if necessary to hit a 7 every time? B, start with RPE 7 and keep the weights the same, letting it increase to RPE 8 and possibly 9, or maybe only increase by 1. C, end with RPE 7 and do a weight light enough that you choose a weight where the last set is RPE 7. So as read, most protocols, I would say, if they do 3x5 at RPE 7, there's one of two options. Probably 50% of them, maybe 45%, let's say, just have never thought of the complexity you're asking and they wouldn't be able to tell you. The other 45%, bringing our total up to 90, would probably instruct you to do option A, modifying the weight every time to continue to hit a 7. I've seen Charlie train, our friend and training partner Charlie train with RPE scale from a few good coaches, and that's how they did it. Like every set's RPE 7. So like, if your first set is RPE 7, but you feel really potentiated, feel free to go up. And if you feel tired, go down. Every set 7. And then 10% is some other thing that the coach will clear up with you when he says, RPE 7, I really mean an average of 7. So the first can be an RPE 8, the second can be 7, the last one could be a 6, or the other way around. So your best bet is, in good faith, assuming there is knowledge conveyed, I would say it's option A, adjust the weight every time to keep hitting a 7. James?
Yeah, sorry, I was confused on that at first. So the thing is, the reason I kind of scoffed at A was because I forgot that they're using a 3x5. So whenever you see a fixed rep scheme, it's very hard to assume that you can have a fixed like relative intensity scale using the same. The reps generally can't be fixed if the RIR or the RPE is also fixed. Usually one has to give at some point, or it's very unlikely that you're going to see that across an entire workload for an exercise.
It's also very hard to hit if you're really trying. Like, it can just really put you in a state of like, fuck, was that 7 or 7.5? Like it's odd advice.
So like the way I would tell you to interpret that is when you see 3x5, that's kind of like assume an average of 5 reps across the 3 sets. So maybe it's like 6, 5, 4, right? Something like that. And then you would just hold the weight and RIR constant and the reps would adjust themselves. That would make the most sense to me. I generally have gotten away from doing the fixed reps because it causes so many confusions in this realm, though there are instances, especially for like athletes who are stupid. It's just easier to do it that way. But yeah, I would say assume that the 3 sets of 5 is like the 5 reps is like an average to shoot for, not necessarily like a hard stop at 5.
Yeah. Anyway, hopefully that helps, Adam. Clearly, James and I don't like that nomenclature. We don't think it.
But we're snobs about it, so don't feel bad.
All right, Mehmet Kafadaroglu from what is almost certainly Turkey.
Whoa. He sounds like a Game of Thrones character.
Sweet. All right. Hey, docs, I can do around 20 sets on a single workout before being limited by my time and my tiredness. That's a good way to put it. I work out, someone's like, still got energy at the end. You're like, want to do more? Like, nope, time. Still run has plenty of time, like tiredness. I'm done. I work out 6 times a week and generally do a total 120 sets in a week and generally train 10 to 12 different muscles in my body, like everyone else. LOL. Well, like a lot of people. Is it better to do 10 to 12 sets for each muscle with no phase potentiation or MEV to MRV for certain muscles and just MEV for the ones we put them in back burner if my goal is maximum hypertrophy all around my body? By the way, an intermediate lifter, I think as an intermediate, you start to detect something. That is the muscles that if you're just training everything MEV to MRV, at some point you're going to be in a situation where you can't start at MEV or you can't hit MRV, and a muscle really feels constrained based on trying to prioritize all of them. And or the total fatigue you're experiencing is so high systemically that you have to lower the total amount of training you're doing. All of a sudden, you can't fit all the muscles in between MEV and MRV. So then you would start to take some muscles down to MEV, prop other muscles between MEV and MRV, and begin the specialization / prioritization type of approach, alternating every few mesocycles which muscles you take off and put onto the back and front burners. So I would say this: if you are training in your way that you're doing it, and you feel like you're really giving every muscle due justice, like you're really pushing it to the max at the end of the meso, and the systemic fatigue's not preventing you from pushing muscles you need to further, then you think you're good to go. So for example, if you're pushing quads and glutes hard and you're relatively advanced, you'll notice that you can't do that and push your back hard as well. So you'll be like, how am I supposed to bent row twice a week if I deadlift once a week and then do SLDLs another time a week and then do back squats twice a week? There is no answer to that question. The answer is you can't do that. So
I had that exact epiphany like early in my career, just like, why can't I?
You and I probably had it about the same time.
Like I feel so weak. What's going on?
Yeah. And that's one of those things that for program design class, I used to be able to tell the people apart that actually lifted versus the ones that didn't. Is the people that didn't actually lift but knew programming pretty well. They're like, deadlift, squat, bent over row 3 times a week. Like, okay, no one's going to do this program. Yeah. No one, any decent level of development is going to survive the shit. So if that's you, then you need to back off and do legs big time for a few months, back, take it easier, and then the other way around after. If what we just said is like, oh, no, I can train everything pretty well, then you don't need to do prioritization phases. You're fucking golden.
Yeah, that's a very good answer. So Mehmet, I think like you kind of know the answer to some of this already. I could tell by the way your question is phrased. Like, do you ever think that we're going to say no phase potentiation or not training from MEV to MRV is good for maximum hypertrophy? Doggy, you know the answer. You know that we're going to say you need to do those things, right? But like Mike said, this is an issue of like kind of measuring where you're at with training age, measuring your time and resources, and maybe specializing. I think that this is also a good time to consider your SFRs of the movements that you're choosing. You might find that you're doing so many sets and it's taking a lot of time because the SFR of the movements that you have chosen are poor, or maybe you could individualize them to raise the SFR so you could actually have more time and or resources to do other things. definitely a good thing to think about. But yeah, at some point, you will probably have to abandon the idea of making all around progress and having to start making more specialized progress through specialization phases. But before you get there, if you haven't thought about your movements for a while, if you find that you're doing, 5 sets per exercise and multiple exercises per muscle group per session, and it's taking a lot of time, maybe start thinking about like, what are some movements and stuff? What are some movements where I get a huge bang for my buck? So instead of doing like 5 sets of incline bench press, can I get the same kind of stimulus from doing 2 sets of dumbbell flies? Like, ooh, so that frees up quite a bit of time and resources for you. So things like that. Think about it a little bit.
Yeah, great stuff. Bradley.
Read.
I can't. Yeah. Type in Bradley and you'll see. That's
Bradley puppies.
Puppies. Oh.
Who's in that? His avatar? Is it Jesus? Or Jesus?
It looks like a creepy person in a hoodie. Bradley asks, what would you recommend for increasing someone's back squat when they have long legs and a short torso? Make back squats very taxing on the low back and lift at home so they do not have access to a leg press or other such machines. So now let's get to the point here. The question will be answered as written. It did not ask about quad stimulus. It asked about increasing someone's back squat. The answer to that is do a fuckload of posterior chain work. Because your posterior chain is probably going to limit your back squat performance because you have to lean over so far. You can work on your ankle mobility. That helps you lean not as much. You can buy weightlifting shoes. That helps a ton as well. Then you can just do traditional squat work and get away with it fine. But I would say lots of stiff-legged deadlifts and especially lots of good mornings. Not lots numerically, but a lot of focus on doing them well and getting stronger on them. Because your lower back, just your torso in general, is probably the limiting factor in your squat. If you could do more posterior chain focus, then you can probably squat a fuckload more than you are now. That's probably my best answer so far. James?
Yeah, there's certainly going to at least be, some synergy in some of those muscles too. Like your glutes will get a lot of work, which will help your squat, your back, obviously. So Mike answered the question as written. I think that you could also approach it from like a phase potentiated standpoint of having some different specialization phases, or maybe trying to bring up your quads even more with doing some non-strength specific exercises. But that starts to get a little bit more complicated, right? So I think as written, that's definitely the way to go.
Boom. James, that's it, man. That's everybody.
Oh, my goodness. I saw some people were giving me some love on my rifle choice. Thank you very much. I'm very appreciated. Hopefully you guys are enjoying some shooting sports as well. I shamefully bought another gun, Mike. I'm ashamed to admit it.
Oh, there's no shame.
It was cheap. It was it's basically like it's like an AR platform 22. And it just 22 is so fun and easy to shoot. And it just makes life a lot easier.
Me too.
Yeah, it's cheap as fuck and really easy to find. So shame. I know all the guns. Okay. So wrapping up, great questions this week. Dr. Mike, any housekeeping?
Working on a new thing. Can't talk about it.
So secretive.
Will change lives. It will. What is it? In Grandma's Boy, they're like, JP, how's your new game coming along? He's like, people will bow to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Right on. Let's see. I'm working on some secret stuff too, but one thing that's not a secret is I'm going to actually, hopefully later today, I'm going to have all the, if Audible cooperates, I'll have all the files for Mel's audiobook uploaded. So the evidence-based habit building book should be available on, Audible probably within a couple months, pending nothing goes wrong. It's currently available on paperback now as well. You can find that on Amazon. So if you guys enjoyed the ebook version or you were waiting for a paperback version, that's out. And then if you're wanting an audio version, just give it a couple months and hopefully that will be done.
Boom.
All right, folks. Thanks again for the questions. Really good as always. And we will see you next time.
Peace.